They let her dog sleep in my room, then told me to sleep outside. I didn't argue. I zipped my jacket, got in my car, and left a letter that ended our entire family. It was 42 degrees out. My hospital badge was still around my neck. I had just finished a double shift, and yet my place in that house was below a poodle. I sat in the car I used to drive them to brunch. No porch light for me. No one asked if I'd eaten, but I didn't scream, didn't beg. I let the cold crawl in. And I started planning my exit. I wasn't always invisible. At least I don't think I was. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the helpful one, the girl who folded laundry before anyone asked, who remembered every birthday card, who learned to cook dinner by 11 because mom said real women don't rely on takeout. My younger sister, Brittany. She was the sparkly one, the girl with the bows, the tantrums, and eventually the social media followers. She didn't have to lift a finger. If she broke a dish, it was an accident. If I forgot to restock the fridge, it was irresponsible. Brittany had allergies, eggs, pollen, dust, dairy, so the house was rearranged around her needs. And when she adopted a toy poodle last spring, guess who had to take the dog to the vet, walk it in the snow, and clean the carpet after accidents? Mom would smile at me and say, "Claire, you're just better with routines. You're dependable. That's your strength." What she really meant was, "You're useful." Dad used to be the buffer. Richard Monroe, Global Logistics VP. He traveled constantly, but when he was home, he saw me. He cheered when I got into nursing school. He framed my acceptance letter even when Mom said, "It's not Harvard." He called me kiddo even after I turned 30. He made me feel like I mattered. But this past year, he got transferred to Europe. 3 months, then maybe longer. He kissed my forehead and said, "Keep them grounded while I'm gone." I tried. But without him there, the balance tipped fast. One Sunday in August, I had worked back-to-back night shifts. I came home, dropped my bag, and found Brittany hosting a wellness brunch for her influencer friends, using ingredients I bought, dishes I washed, and space I wasn't told about. My room. She'd moved her vanity into it. My bed too firm, so she tossed the mattress and used it for the dog's cushion. I told Mom I felt displaced. She said, "Claire, don't be dramatic. Brittany is trying to build her brand. Why don't you help her instead of making this about you?" That's when it hit me. I could break bones on the job work holidays, pay part of the bills, and still be the background character in my own life. When Dad called from Belgium, I didn't tell him anything. I didn't want to sound bitter. But I started keeping a list in my notes app. Times I didn't matter. The total was growing. There was the dinner party where I cooked for 12 and wasn't introduced to the guests. The time Brittany lost my car keys and Mom yelled at me for not labeling things better. The birthday when the only card I got was signed from all of us. I convinced myself that being needed was enough, until that cold October night when the dog needs warmth became more important than Claire needs shelter. It wasn't just hurtful, it was clarifying. Because that night in the car, I realized something no one else in my family had. I wasn't the weak one for being quiet. I was the strong one for surviving it all and still showing up. But I was done showing up for people who wouldn't show up for me. The week it happened, I was barely sleeping. I'd picked up extra shifts to cover for a coworker whose child had the flu. The hospital was short-staffed. I didn't mind, it kept me from thinking. On Thursday night, I was walking to my car after a 12-hour shift. My phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Claire, don't forget the groceries for Brittany's brunch. And the dog food. We're out of the organic brand." I could barely feel my fingers. The night air was biting. "I haven't slept in 36 hours, I said. She paused. "So get some rest after you finish errands. You're strong, Claire. You always bounce back." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was expected. That night, I never made it home. At 4:12 a.m., a delivery truck ran a red light and hit my car. I don't remember the impact, just the sound of metal folding and then blackness. When I opened my eyes again, I was surrounded by blue gowns, white lights, and urgency. Voices. Internal bleeding. Concussion. She's crashing. And then nothing. They told me later I flatlined for 40 seconds. When I came back, I was in the ICU, tubes in my arms, a ventilator in my throat. The beeping of machines was the only sound tethering me to life. My emergency contact, Mom. The hospital called her at 5 a.m. A nurse told me this days later apologetically. She said my mom answered the phone, groggily listened, and replied, "I'm walking my daughter's dog." "Can it wait?" When told I might not survive the night, she replied, "We have plans to drive to New York this afternoon." They called again at noon. No answer. It wasn't until day 2 that she and Brittany came to visit, arms full of shopping bags, hair freshly blown out, Brittany's nails still drying. They spent less than 15 minutes in my room. "She looks terrible," Brittany whispered, thinking I couldn't hear. Mom stood by the door and told the nurse, "Don't mention this to my husband. He's busy in Europe." And then they left. No one held my hand. No one kissed my forehead, except Erin, my coworker, who sat by me every night after her shift. "She's strong," Erin told the doctors. "She's a fighter." On day 4, I began to wake up. My eyes opened. I couldn't speak, but I could hear. A nurse leaned close. "Claire, blink if you hear me." I blinked. Slowly. Twice. Tears welled up in her eyes. That evening I moved my fingers, then my hand, then my lips formed a single word. Dad. Erin bent down. "Your mom said not to tell him, but do you want us to?" I nodded. But my phone had been destroyed in the crash. The hospital had no way to reach him. Only my mother had his European number, and she'd kept it from everyone. For 7 days I lay there broken and wired to machines, wondering why he hadn't come, wondering why I still cared. Until the truth began to unravel quietly but surely, because I wasn't just healing. I was remembering. Something didn't add up. Dad always answered, even from Switzerland, even from an airport lounge. He'd call me just to ask how my week was. And then I remembered what he said in our last call: "I'll be in Belgium 3 weeks, not 3 months. So why had Mom said otherwise? Something wasn't right. And if no one else was going to care enough to ask questions, I would. Even from that hospital bed, I started to piece things together. And when I could move my hand again, I asked for a pen. All I wrote was, "Find Dad, use his company." And that's when everything began to shift. Because if they didn't want him to know, it meant the truth was worse than I imagined. It took 2 nurses and Erin to track him down. They called the regional office of Global Link Logistics in Boston and asked for any way to contact Richard Monroe, their European branch VP. After a few hours and a chain of emails, they got through. Turns out he wasn't in Europe. He was in Hong Kong finishing a 3-week restructuring project that was wrapping up early. Not 3 months. 3 weeks. Exactly what he told me on our last call. But my mother... She told the hospital otherwise. She told me otherwise. She told him I was fine, just working long shifts, too tired to talk. The lie felt intentional, and I started to wonder why keep my accident a secret. That night, while Erin was getting coffee, I pulled myself upright for the first time. My body trembled under its own weight, but I didn't stop. I needed answers. My bag had been totaled in the crash. My phone gone. But Erin had brought me her iPad, and with it I started searching. I Googled his hotel, his LinkedIn. I wrote down everything I could remember from our last conversation. Then I remembered something else. I still had a house key, and Erin had already offered to let me stay with her after discharge, so I made a plan. By day 7, I was able to walk with a cane. The doctor called it miraculous resilience. I called it necessity. That night, without telling anyone, I signed my own discharge papers and left with Erin. We stopped by my family home, not to move back in, but to listen. The porch lights were off. Inside, the living room glowed warm. I heard voices. "I told you?" Joseph, Mom whispered. "He won't be back for 2 more weeks. We're safe." I froze. "Joseph." I stepped closer to the window. Mom was sitting beside a man. Not Dad. Dark suit, familiar voice. His hand rested lightly on hers. "I hate sneaking around," he said. She laughed softly. "I've done it for 20 years. What's 2 more weeks?" My lungs locked. 20 years, I turned to Erin, who stood in the shadows, her hand already on her phone. I shook my head. Not yet. I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. The next morning I returned, quiet, alone. I used the house key to let myself in while they were out. My room was gone, replaced by Brittany's dog nursery, a bed for the poodle, heating pads, pink wallpaper, a monogrammed dog bowl on my old nightstand. The room that once held my college textbooks and dreams of becoming a nurse now smelled like pet shampoo. But the house phone still worked. I used it to call a tech-savvy friend from the hospital. I needed help retrieving files from Mom's shared email. Within hours, I had screenshots of conversations with someone saved as DK, Joseph Klein, emails, weekend plans, hotel confirmations, even a message that read, "Remember, Brittany can't know he's not her real father. Not yet." My chest tightened. What I searched further old files, insurance documents, and then I found it. A digital copy of a DNA report. Probability of paternity 0%. Brittany wasn't Dad's daughter. I stood in the living room where I'd once decorated the Christmas tree, holding the proof that explained everything, the favoritism, the lies, the strange silences. It wasn't just that they didn't love me. It was that I was the only real tie to the man they'd been lying to for decades. I printed everything, wrote a letter, sealed it in an envelope, labeled it, "To Dad, read alone." And I mailed it overnight, international priority. That evening, I left one more note on my old bed. For my mother, short, sharp, final. If you're reading this, I survived. But our family didn't. Tell Brittany the truth yourself before he does. The next day I got a call, from a Hong Kong number. He didn't leave a voicemail. He didn't have to. I knew he'd read it. 2 days later, he landed. Richard Monroe stepped off a red-eye flight from Hong Kong, clutching a brown envelope that had split his world open. The man I remembered as calm, methodical fare, he moved like a storm now. Not loud, not wild, but with purpose. I heard from Aaron that he'd gone straight to the hospital first. He was told I had already been discharged. "Where is she?" he asked the nurse, panic rising in his voice. The nurse had smiled softly. "She's safe, with someone who never left her side." That afternoon, Aaron opened her apartment door. He stood there in the hallway, hair wind-tossed, eyes rimmed red, and when he saw me on that sofa wrapped in a blanket, healing but upright, he didn't speak. He dropped to one knee and held my hand. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I should have been there." I couldn't stop the tears. Neither could he. We sat like that for a long time. No explanations, no small talk. Just two people trying to stitch back something that never should have been torn. When I finally looked up, I asked, "Did you read everything?" He nodded. Every word. Every file. Every lie. His hand trembled as he passed me his phone. The last message from Mom read, "Please don't come home yet. Brittany needs stability." He didn't reply. But he did go home. That evening, Richard unlocked the door of the house he'd paid for, built memories, and raised what he thought was a family. Janet and Brittany were in the living room. Suitcases surrounded them. Brittany looked pale, mascara smudged. Janet's hand flew to her mouth the second she saw him. "You weren't supposed to be back until next week?" she stammered. "Plans changed," he said. "Or maybe they were never what I thought they were." Brittany stood clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Dad." He held up a hand. "Don't. You didn't know. And that's not your fault." Her voice cracked. "What do you mean?" Janet tried to interject, but he turned to her. "I know everything. About Joseph. About the DNA. About the accident. You lied to me, Janet, for decades." "I didn't mean," she whispered. "You didn't mean to get caught," he corrected. "And when Claire almost died, you didn't just abandon her. You made sure I didn't even have the chance to be there." The room fell into an eerie silence. He pulled a folder from his bag. "This is a divorce agreement. My lawyer has copies. You'll also see a claim for emotional damages and fraud." Janet's face drained of color. "Fraud?" "You let me raise someone else's child while hiding the truth," he said coldly. "And you made my real daughter feel less than a dog." Brittany gasped, stepping back. "I'm not blaming you," he said gently to her, "but you need to hear this. That day, Claire was in critical condition. Your mother said she couldn't come because she was walking your dog." "I didn't know," Brittany whispered. "She didn't tell me." Richard's eyes softened for a moment. "Then now you do." He turned, leaving them with nothing but stunned silence and cold walls. When he returned to Aaron's apartment that night, he had a suitcase in one hand and groceries in the other. "I thought I'd make dinner," he said. "Something new, something that isn't cooked in guilt." We laughed, we cried, we ate together like a family, not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. A few weeks passed. I healed faster than the doctors predicted. My bruises faded, my scars shrank. But what really changed was something deeper. For the first time, I felt free. Dad transferred back to Boston, took a position at the company's headquarters, and moved into a modest apartment nearby. We picked furniture together, built bookshelves, argued over paint colors, and laughed about who was worse with measuring tape. Erin became part of that new circle, too. She visited often, sometimes staying for dinner, sometimes just dropping by with cookies and gentle sarcasm. One night, a card came in the mail. Return address none. Handwriting familiar. Mom. I didn't open it. I dropped it straight into the trash. Some things deserve closure. Others deserve silence. And I chose silence. By Christmas, we had decorated our tiny shared space with string lights and a real pine tree. Dad hung my nursing school photo in the entryway. Erin brought over hot chocolate and cinnamon rolls, and in the middle of all of it, I realized the revenge wasn't in exposing the truth. It was in living better without them, in building something warmer, stronger, real. Later that night, we raised our glasses. To real family, Dad said. Erin smiled, to finally being seen. I looked out the window. No porch light, no dog barking, just quiet and peace. Some people spend their whole lives chasing love from the wrong places. I used to think loyalty meant silence, but maybe real family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you're broken without asking for anything back. So tell me, if the people who raised you made you feel invisible, would you still fight to be seen by them, or would you walk away and finally choose yourself? Let me know in the comments. I'll be reading.